if you check in with folks that I've worked with before, ask them what my favorite car is and why, their answer is going to be a Chrysler Pacifica.
Pacific.
And the reason is exactly what we're talking about, which is it's comfortable for everyone, has plenty of space for laptops and luggage, and it's an easy one to get to and from all the different meetings that we're going to.
In a world increasingly shaped by technology, the HumanUp Imperative explores the significance of human connection with each other, with the communities we serve, and perhaps most importantly, with ourselves. Join Rex Wallace and his guests as they discuss the ever-important role of authentic, meaningful connection in healthcare. It's time to Human Up.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the HumanUp Imperative. Today's guest is someone who really embodies, what this podcast is all about. Gary Culp is Senior Vice President of Government Markets at Blue Shield of California. And over the course of his career, he's led teams through complexity, through change, through pressure at really some of the highest levels in healthcare. But what makes Gary special isn't just the titles that he's held or the positions that he's had or the organizations that he's helped lead. It's how he shows up. Anybody who knows him knows this. Gary understands that leadership isn't about authority or hierarchy. It's about trust and presence and making space for people to do their best work. I've had the privilege of working with Gary and traveling with Gary, which will be relevant in a few minutes as we kind of get into this discussion, and really to see how he operates and how he really works to change the culture of various organizations. With that, please join me as we human up with Gary Culp. Gary,
Thanks,
welcome.
Rex. Hey, it's great to be here and really good to see you also. I appreciate this topic because it really hits, hard with me because it's so important to have the right people on the team and kind of building the right culture. So this particular topic is one that's, really of interest to me as well. So thanks for bringing me on today.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for being on, for joining us. I give you a really high level intro. Feel free to give a little bit more expanded introduction of yourself, but your background, but anything else that you think might be relevant to the listeners.
You got it. I think from a headline perspective, I'd say I'm a family guy who loves people and making a difference. So that'd be kind of the headline. But underneath all of that is this year will actually be my 30th anniversary with my wife, Georgia. So how time flies and pretty exciting as well. Yeah, thank you. I can't believe it, honestly. And then we've got two adult children. We have a son that's 27. He's actually exciting things for him right now. He actually is engaged and getting married in August. And a daughter, another exciting news. She is in her final semester of law school, so she'll be graduating in May. So some great stuff going on around the family. From a background,
2026 is a big year, huh?
I know it is. 2026 is a big year on many fronts. So it's exciting across the board. From a healthcare journey perspective, I actually started in somewhat of a unique space. I was in a fully integrated medical group is where I first started and had this really fortunate opportunity to work with this incredible owner, leader, proprietor that actually owned the medical group. And by trade was a physician, but he gave me the opportunity to really explore all aspects of the business on the clinical and the business side. And starting there actually is where my career started in healthcare because I learned very quickly that I liked the business side of the healthcare business. And with that kind of, have been in, various different regional and national roles for United Healthcare, Aetna, Cigna, and now with Blue Shield of California. So exciting kind of background in terms of learning more about how to really make healthcare accessible, affordable, and easier for people to navigate. And at the core is really a mission of trying to help people, ensuring that they're actually getting the right kind of healthcare at the right time.
Yeah, it's a great resume, a great, I think legacy around you, the people that you've that have been able to work with you, including me. And it's been you're leaving a, what do you call it? Like a coaching tree everywhere. I'm sure. I'd like to start with this. It's a little thing, sort of, but it's an example of a big thing. But we talked about this. But when we've worked together before, we've traveled a little bit together, right? And this is such an important small part of, I think, of and a good example of exactly why you're here, right? And of those legacies that I mentioned that you're leaving behind when you leave an organization. But whenever we travel somewhere, Gary rents, some people rent a car, some people do an Uber. Gary rents a minivan every time I've traveled with him, and uses that to show for everybody to kind of, be the father, right? Like he's the one who, hey guys, I got the minivan, everybody jump in, no need to Uber, no need to, get your own rental cars. I've got you. Right. And, it's maybe a small thing, but but I think it speaks volumes as to, kind of how you see people and how you treat people. But was that intentional when you first started doing that? How did that kind of come about?
I love that you asked this question because there is complete intent behind this. And there's a few things. First of all, I recognize that while many people enjoy travel, there's a difference between travel for business and personal. And when you're traveling for business, you're spending time away from your family versus spending time at home or with your family or your loved ones. And so the easier you can make travel and business, the better. So one component is just, making it easy for folks so that when they arrive somewhere that may not be their normal home turf or they're spending time away from their family, there's an ease of actually knowing that all your ground transportation is taken care of from airport to hotel, from hotel to meetings to dinner. It doesn't matter, to make it easier. The second key part is that when you think about those fun times growing up as a family, some of the best stories are, some of the crazy jokes that you came up with on the road or the road trips with your family and the time that you spent together. And it's no different than being on the road with your colleagues and being able to really have that team environment and be able to share some really fun stories along the way and really feel kind of connected and engaged. And particularly in today's world, because we're so dependent upon virtual aspects of our business and not really having that human element of time and being able to spend time together. So that time that you spend in the car, albeit getting from the airport to the hotel or hotel to your meeting, is really critical. And then from a business perspective, it makes complete sense too, because the time between those particular meetings or, going from airport to hotel and such are also ways to quickly connect on, hey, let's focus on these, 3 items or questions that someone on the team might have of me, I can quickly answer. So it provides kind of an efficient way of getting stuff done as well. So I think it's great that you actually actually saw that as being something of strength in terms of team building, because it has been very intentional and continues to be.
Is there a time when it started, or is it, the minute you became a leader, did it just kind of start happening, or what?
I would say that it's always been at the core in terms of trying to be a good host and make business easy in terms of people feeling comfortable, open, and respected has always been part of my just personal core. I think it probably comes up with just the way my parents raised me and the family, and also the way that I look at things and the value of people and the overall equation. I'd say the minivan aspect, though, is something that started in my career when I was in national accounts, and I would have, multiple different finalist presentations, and it usually was encompassing of a broader group of, kind of shared partners within an organization that maybe I didn't work as closely with. So it gave me an opportunity to really create relationships with people that I maybe wouldn't have had as much time with, because they're flying in from different parts of the country, trying to come in for a meeting in between meetings. So the time in the car was critical time to be able to build those relationships and share some details around the next steps. But it pulled through to literally every team that I've ever been on. In fact, if you check in with folks that I've worked with before, ask them what my favorite car is and why, their answer is going to be a Chrysler Pacifica. And the reason is exactly what we're talking about, which is it's comfortable for everyone, has plenty of space for laptops and luggage, and it's an easy one to get to and from all the different meetings that we're going to.
So I'm not the only person that's noticed this about you. Other people,
No.
they picked up on it. It's not subtle. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, I wasn't really intending it to be overt,
Right.
but it's obviously not subtle.
Well, it's there are far worse things to be known by, right? That's a great one, actually. So, kind of related to all this, right? Like it's interesting that even on your LinkedIn profile, I think you have your job title and the company that the organization that you work for right now. And then the third thing is, it says human, which is, I could have searched on LinkedIn for humans, and to look for HumanUp guests, and you would have popped up that way. I'm just curious. I love that you have that on there, right? So what's significant behind that?
When you think about just human, it's really at the center of what we all do. We're all trying to make a difference around making healthcare accessible, affordable, and easier to access. And so at the center of all that is really human. All the things that we're doing are trying to make it a more humanistic and an approach that actually creates, great value at the individual level. So it's a term or word that's used within and externally with Blue Shield, which I really resonate with as well, because I believe that that is the core of everything that we're doing, and part of what my personal and professional mission is in terms of helping kind of drive a difference and raise the bar in terms of the experience that people have. So that it makes it easier for them to navigate. And by no means am I saying that there's anything perfect, because our world of healthcare is complex. There's a lot of challenges that we have to deal with, and it's really just keeping those front and center so that we can try to remove them in the way of how people access care and make it easier for them.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect, word, because it's not perfect, right? Humans, obviously it's pretty well designed. I mean, right? But we are not perfect, and we have our vulnerabilities and authenticities and flaws and everything, right? So no, I think it's something that obviously people can connect with. I think customers and employees and everyone else. So I like that a lot. Okay, so we talked about these roles that you've had at these organizations, right? And you mentioned them. United, Aetna, Cigna, Blue Shield of California now, right? So for really prominent organizations, huge organizations, with big reputations and good images. How do you read the room when you leave one organization and go to the next organization? How do you read the room before trying to change anything? How do you kind of absorb what's the culture there, and how do you kind of determine what to start changing? Because we're kind of talking about change management, right? And the way you've done that so well, I feel like, at these organizations.
It's such a great question in the way that really it probably starts with a timeline answer. And the timeline answer is I don't read the room after I join. I spend a lot of time really assessing the room before I actually join. So the first thing that I look for is, how do they define their culture, their mission? What is it that is valuable to them in terms of what they're trying to do? And is there a core alignment for me personally? Because if there isn't a core alignment, then it's hard for me to get my excitement and passion around kind of driving what it is that, we're trying to do as an organization. The second is that I put a lot of weight in my experience, even as a candidate, as I'm going through different interview process, or I've talked to people about opportunities, in understanding about the people I'm meeting with. Because the people I'm meeting with are going to be very telling on how the organization is structured, what it is that they see as being their strengths or weaknesses, and being transparent around what those are. Because the honesty piece is really important in terms of success and kind of driving the right team culture also, so that folks know where the pain points are. They can help prioritize around, solving for those pain points. They're not afraid to solve for them. They're not afraid to bring them forward. And so I think that starts at the core, and then it's really people with the right intent. So there's times where, things may not progress at the speed or efficiency that we would all like. But if people are putting their oar in the water at the same time with the right intent in terms of moving it forward, then we'll make continuous improvement and continue to advance. So I kind of look at it as the reading the room starts well before you even get to the house.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you step in, then it's really, assessing quickly on, if there isn't alignment in certain areas, why is that? So you can help in terms of not just navigating it, but coming up with ideas or solutions to help in terms of perpetuate the right type of change within an organization. And change is such a commonly used word within organizations. And I know that culture change is at the center of all that. And culture change is not an easy one. There's a lot that is that you have to understand in terms of what may be barriers to change. Barriers to change might come in the way of resources or processes or things that may not be people. And so kind of splitting between people, process, resource, and trying to wrap your arms around what the right plan is to attack each one of them will help in terms of the overall change.
Yeah, I feel like we could talk about this question like for a few hours, right?
Yes.
I keep thinking, when I've it's been a while since I changed organizations, but because I've been doing this for a while now. But I remember like when I took a role one time at a brand new company, I read The First 90 Days. It's a pretty standard book, right? That helps you understand things to look for and things to be really intentional about when you first land at a new company, in a new role, understanding who are the key influencers that you need to understand. I have to imagine these 4 big organizations that you've, been a leader at are all very different. Even though they're very similar, they have a lot of internal differences, I imagine. Just kind of how they view leadership, how they view leadership behaviors. Is that you mentioned culture, right? When you go in and want to change culture or need to change culture needs to change and improve. I've heard someone say one time, you can't change the whole system immediately. You have to start with the room that you're in. So the whole concept of, read the room, like I think that's a good example too of just, wherever you come into the organization, focus there, and then, almost like land and expand, right? But you have to start small, right? Or do you agree, or how do you approach that when you go somewhere?
No, I do agree. I think that you start with, select elements within the business, whether it be a room, a team, a group, or a line of business, whatever it is that is kind of the tangible group that you're trying to make the most immediate change with, making that change, but then at the same time folding in, kind of adjacent partners, if you will, into that same change. What's kind of common that I see is that people are actually more open and interested in change when it has a positive influence and impact on what they're doing. So a lot of this is also creating the visibility to why. Why are we looking at change, and what does change look like? So that there's a visualization to say, it's not that we're just changing because, there's a new leader in town, or because we have a new system or platform that we're working with. There's a change for a purpose that creates like a better member experience, a better efficiency in terms of how we use dollars so we can use them on something else to make our products more rich or beneficial to the consumer. So if you can provide that kind of like illustration of what the intent is and then try to measure how you're going after it, the better. And Rex, I'll use an example that you and I worked on. And the reason why we first started kind of working together was around a customer experience project and trying to work on a Medicare population who the organization deeply cared about retaining and ensuring that they got the right access to care. But frankly, from a process and a model perspective, we're not as mature as it could be. So like where you helped us was like, let's, peel it back and really understand what components are working, which ones are not, but give the team some visibility around what success looks like. So what are we trying to get to? We're trying to get stronger. Retention is kind of a, quick outcome, which is an output to customer experience, but those experience points are the ones that we were measuring along the way to say, how is the experience progressing so it's more positive, to influence how they look at us as far as a payer or insurer health plan that they're getting coverage from.
Yeah. The whole concept of change and education. There's a conversation I'm having tomorrow with someone about improvement, kind of improvement science, right? And this makes me think about that and how one of the things as we prepare for this discussion tomorrow, this person has written a book about quality as an organizational strategy. And one of the points in the book, which I think is taken from Edwards Deming, right, the kind of grandfather of quality, but basically that any improvement has to come from some kind of disruption, some kind of change, right? Like if like when you leave one organization and go to another, I mean, that organization is hoping they will be better off, right? When you get there, that you will generate some kind of positive change. I don't think they're looking for, new senior executives. Just keep us where we are, right? There's always room for improvement, but to improve, you have to change something. Like, things can't stay the same and improve. You have to disrupt the system. And, yeah, so I know when you go in, you've already looked at the room before you get there, understanding the climate and the appetite for risk and change and improvement. Yeah. Do you have those changes in your mind when you get to the room? Or I know you don't maybe say them out loud for a little while, like the whole concept of, getting somewhere and getting acclimated first and building a reputation and building trust and then start, or is that what you subscribe to? Or do you make changes more quickly when you get there?
So I would say it's all of what you said, but I'd add a few other thoughts. So one is that even during the interview process or onboarding or initial phase in terms of stepping into a role or a new organization, is understanding kind of the organization's need and desires as well. Some may or may not know it, but if they have a clear direction in terms of what they're looking to do, then I'll set that as a priority as well, because that's part of what my expectations are in terms of a role to be able to deliver. In some organizations, it may be a broader kind of statement around a very global improvement. So kind of going back to the example we were just talking about a moment ago, a customer experience is a very global statement. That is a broad category that really hits in so many different areas, because you can hit customer experience from prospecting in the way that they view you and the way that you bring them in to get information to actually, elect having you as a plan, to servicing, where they have a claims issue, or they are looking for access to a provider, or things that we're trying to help them navigate their overall care journey, and anywhere in between. So I kind of look at what is the organization looking for, and if they don't know, or if it's broad, then I will do a quick assessment before coming in, as well as getting in to what the priorities are. The other thing is that, look, there's a lot to do in healthcare, and the opportunities of actually improvement continue. So it's really prioritizing as well. So where is it that we can make the greatest impact fast, and then also add to those as we continue to grow?
And when you're at an organization and you have, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of employees, potentially reporting up through you at some point. How do you, so as like right now, you're a senior VP, right? How do you make sure people are not just telling you what you want to hear when you're talking to them, and getting their buy-in and trying to really, get them on board, but also helping them feel supported and like you've got their back. But does your title prevent that sometimes? How do you manage that?
Yeah, I think that there's times where people might, believe that a hierarchy, a title, maybe, prior leadership, or even organizational cultures may prevent them from being honest, direct, and forthright. And the way that I find my way around that is, one, demonstrating that there's nothing that I'm afraid to roll up my sleeves for. So I will be in the market, I will do whatever I need to do across the board, and then bring it all the way up to, the leadership within an organization in terms of execution. So that's one thing. I'm not sitting like it's some place where it's not touchable. The second is complete open access. And open access, by the way, I really welcome and encourage anyone on my team or not on my team that are looking for information, help, or just want to kind of talk through, even if it's career development or anything that's important to them. Access to me in the way of my cell phone, texting, IM through our systems, email, doesn't matter to me. I will take one-on-ones. I, will meet with people and do, career development as they're thinking about like how they're thinking about their growth within an organization. But a lot of this is really kind of instilling trust because I think the more that people trust people, the more that they disclose and are more forthright, and then encouraging it. So when we have challenges, just making them known as quickly as possible, recognizing what the issue is, and then quickly acting on what it is that we can do to try to solve it, but not in the way of being penalized for what the challenge is, rather being encouraged, supported, and celebrated for the outcomes of what we're trying to drive in terms of making a difference.
If you were giving guidance to other leaders who are maybe struggling with building trust, and what would you tell them to avoid doing?
I would avoid as much as possible, standing behind a hierarchy. I think that hierarchies are in place more for process efficiency, in some ways authority, but authority in a kind of a lowercase a, not an uppercase a, meaning that there isn't an endless checkbook, for example. So we have to have some, payment authority, if you will, around what we can do or can't do. There's compliance aspects around authority we might need to consider, things like that, safety, whatever it might be that kind of falls under what I would consider a lowercase authority, but not an uppercase authority in terms of, really power and control. I think that limits honesty, it limits transparency, and it limits, folks' kind of comfort in terms of really navigating within an organization. Um, the other thing I'd say is that around helping stop any potential roadblocks. If everyone's trying to do their best and they have the right intent and they're coming into work every day and they're doing what they need to do, if they raise a challenge that is a roadblock to them being successful, help, step in, help remove those roadblocks, because the sooner that those roadblocks are removed, the sooner they're going to get what they need to get done and achieve. The last one is, I've seen often, and this isn't, I think it's well intended, but I've seen often where it's, don't just come to me with a problem, come to me with a problem and a solution. And what I found is that works in some instances, because there are times where people in just a quick thinking can come up with, albeit some draft solutions, they can kind of solve for the problem, come up with solutions. But oftentimes I've found that they didn't stumble across a problem. The problem has kind of manifested itself over time and has gotten larger. And it's one that requires maybe multiple different shared services, may need some external help. There's things that are a little bit more complex that need to be thought through, and possibly even as a team. So I think keeping it open to even raising problems that there aren't solutions for, or to start the conversation around what it is so that you can solve for it, I think also helps. So kind of stop requiring the solution is another one.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And on the second one that you mentioned, right, that it resonates too with me around, remove barriers. And I think especially in an executive role, I say a lot, whether it's star ratings or customer experience or, kind of whatever the program that you're trying to improve, show me how engaged the executive steering committee is, and I'll show you how successful your program is, because I think there's a direct line between the engagement of leadership in an organization and the effectiveness of the program that steering committee is focused on, right? And I think one of the key reasons for having that executive steering committee in place is to remove barriers that the program director is unable to by themselves, and that's where they really need. That's one of the key places where they really need the help of the cross-functional executives. Secondly, and this is kind of a question back at you, and I'm really curious here because we're talking mainly about how you lead employees. I'm curious about your approach on vendors too, right? Because I've always been, even when I worked for health plans, right? I think it's really important to have a positive engagement with vendors, but also it's a balance, right? But hold them accountable for results and push them as appropriate, but also I think there's a trust that's important to have between a company and its vendor. Um, and I know it's a balance, right? But I'm curious your approach there, because I know plenty of executives who are hard lined on, I'm going to be hard on every vendor, and not that I mean, if they deserve it, of course, but I'm curious as on your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think, starting point is that there's an alignment between business need and vendor solution. And then assuming that, then I think there's the structural element, which is kind of the agreement between what we are looking for in terms of the work and the output of the work, as well as what we're going to be measuring, so that at least on the front end, we're all on the same page. As far as working together, though, I think it's equally as important for the vendor as it is for the team in terms of being transparent, honest, and really working together for the same goal, because the vendors in most situations are not just a vendor for the organization that I'm representing, they're vendors for multiple organizations. And so I look at that as being a resource to untap, really best practice. And Rex, you may recall, even when we started working together in prior org, it was a question of what are some best practices that you've deployed with other organizations, because to me, that kind of shortens the window in terms of adoption, performance, and outcome. And similar to what you just shared around how you see it as, kind of the relationship between the plan and the vendor as being really, key in terms of the success and working together, is the way I look at it. Because if you're not going to get to the results if you're not working together, because there's always something that a vendor relationship needs: connectivity, transparency, engagement, data, connectivity in some way to help improve whatever it is that they're trying to solve for. So I think it's really critical that there's a partnership relationship with vendors.
Yeah, partnership's the right word. Okay, good. No, yeah, totally agree. Um, okay, as you're working with all of these employees, it's so a few years ago, you were in the same office with all of them, right? And maybe you're still in the office with many of them, but now we have remote work with virtual meetings. It's a different kind of engagement. Back to kind of you in the minivan, where you literally like put everyone in the same vehicle and saw the benefits of that. How do you do that? How do you sort of do that in the office, right? Or in the virtual office? I'm curious your approach to managing a virtual workforce.
Yeah, so a few things. So one is that virtual has changed everything. I mean, it's changed it in the way that we have to interact and what we do. I'd also say that technology has helped enabled it. So it's allowed us for access like we're doing here, where, this type of discussion would have had to have been in person at one point in time versus us in two different office locations. So it's great because it makes it where we can still connect and do things. And same with the team within the office. But a few things that I like to keep front of mind. One is that whenever there's an opportunity for in-person, I'm not missing it. So for example, we have town halls, and we have them at our various larger office locations. So I've been trying to rotate between the town halls to be in different locations so that I can spend time with the broader team in person versus always virtual. The second is that while I'm in an office, I don't just stay in my office. You might see me with a headset as I'm on calls that don't require that I'm looking at data or information on a slide or something. I'll walk floors, just say hi or see folks. I mean, part of just being visible and being able to just connect with people, albeit, quickly for a cup of coffee or water or something, is a very important kind of element of staying connected with an organization and a team, particularly in a spirit of organizations going more virtual or more combined or hybrid in terms of office locations. The other is to try to stay very connected to the most important influencers, leaders, and folks on your team in regular one-on-ones. So I think the one-on-one environment is one where you and I can talk freely about everything that we need to talk about in our business, and it's one that's scheduled in advance so people have they can think about things that they want help with. There's barriers or roadblocks they're trying to get removed that they need my help with. or simply just want to talk about, growth plans or things that they're thinking about the future. So I think there's kind of a planful intent around governance in terms of the team management. There's a face-to-face element whenever possible and as frequently as possible. And then in the virtual environment, just staying engaged in the virtual environment and using it as a tool versus a crutch.
That's great. I when I thought the objective here would be for us to help with your insights, right? Help other leaders to see the importance of being so intentional about this human connection piece. But I think what this is going to result in is if you've got job postings, you're going to be flooded with people wanting to work for Gary.
I hope so, because it's like finding good talent is always so critical and important. And yes, so that's an output, and I'm going to thank you in advance.
Well, fingers crossed for you and those employees both. I'm curious, what do you know about leading humans that you didn't learn from a leadership book?
I think one is driving with the right intention. So people are smart. They know whether your intentions are what you're saying or not. And so when you have the right intentions and that's what you're driving for, it's going to be seen, felt, and actually adhered. So kind of being true. The next is being, transparent and honest. So I'm the first to say, I don't know everything and I'm learning every day. And there's things that may be completely obvious to those around me that haven't even hit me yet. And I've been as, direct to say, don't be afraid to punch me between the eyes. And I don't mean literally. So if you're lining up for a job to do that, don't.
Right. Right.
But really just being honest and transparent. And I will do the same also. I caveat with the actual being honest around this too, which is, look, the majority of my job allows me the latitude to really say whatever we need to do to be successful around, within reason of our business. There are some things that frankly people will ask that I may not be at the liberty to be able to discuss. So I'll be direct and honest with that as well. I think it's important for people to know that there's things that you can't say within business as well. Some are not appropriate, some for legal reasons, whatever it might be. The other is to really celebrate wins. So take a look at what you're trying to achieve, find opportunities to celebrate success, because we're moving at such a fast rate, and it's not just velocity, it's also volume, that we get caught up in there's still more to do. And we miss that we've just, traveled, thousands of miles and made such great progress because we're not taking a moment to just celebrate for the success that we've actually traveled. So celebrating is a key piece. And then I've said this before, even today, but it's really being available anytime for anything. Sometimes people just want to, vent, and they need to know that it's not going to be retaliation or something that's going to be a challenge for them, and they just need to get it off their shoulder and then they can move on. Sometimes people are, really don't know the path for them professionally, but they know that they want to advance and they want to run ideas by you around how they might advance. Others might be that they're just want to talk through solutions, and here's our problem, and I'm thinking these three things, anything else you would add? So just being available for whatever that is at any time, I think is also a key piece.
The only one that you didn't mention that I expected was the importance of status with national rental cars, so you can get across the Pacific anytime you travel, right?
That's exactly right. And by the way, someone has told me that I should be a spokesperson for Chrysler Pacifica.
You totally should be. So, okay, let's wrap with just a few rapid fire questions that we ask all the guests. So first off, what's one book everyone should read?
Wow. There's several that probably come to mind, but the one that really comes to mind, particularly in light of our conversation today, is Price Pritchett makes a smaller book. It's almost like it's an easy read. You can get it on Amazon for under $20. It's maybe a 15-minute read if you're not kind of digesting all the detail to it and you just want to skim really quick. But the reason why I like this one's around organizational change. And it's one that applies to personal and professional change. And brings up things that are really interesting in the way that it says, what you might be thinking is this on the one side of the page, and on the other side of the page it says, but reality might be this. So everyone processes change in a different timeline and in a different way. And some that may even appear to be resistant or negative to change, it may be just their learning style and the way that they process change. So what I find really helpful about this particular book is it's one that I think helps leaders in terms of understanding the different types of people and the way that they process change or the things that they might be thinking about. But it also is one that works really well to have conversations with teams to say, hey, it's okay because everyone in this room may have a different perspective in terms of how they process change, the timing it takes, what they're looking for to be able to adapt it. But the more that people have awareness around it, the easier it is for them to kind of get through it. And they don't feel like it's something that's personal, meaning, oh, this must just be me. Like I don't get this, like it must just be me. It's a way to kind of get it on the table and be open and have dialogue around it. And it's an easy read, it's an easy reference. It's inexpensive, so I recommend this one all the time.
What's the name again?
It's by Price Pritchett, and it's called Organizational Change.
Okay. I've never heard of that, but I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Awesome. What was your most helpful personal failure?
So, I was part of national accounts, and we were working on a proposal for General Electric. And the proposal had components of it. And by the way, the proposals become contract. So when you're writing a proposal, it's not just, hey, we have these capabilities and this is what the cost is. It literally becomes contract in terms of how you're actually executing on the health plans that you're offering to their employees, retirees. So we're working on this proposal, and their requirements have some things that were completely outside of the norm from what were standard in terms of approach. And some of them, quite frankly, even brought up questions of, is this even in the best interest for the end user? And I was in a meeting where I was walking through this with the 8 lines of business for the HRBPs for General Electric. And I was trying to give them the reasons why they should be considering alternatives and giving them some options to look at versus adhering to this one provision. And I gave them reasons why. And it came with a lot of pushback. I was very fortunate in that one of the business HRVPs contacted me immediately after, which I can already tell you was not a comfortable call, but a good one, in that he said, look, I really like you, and I think what you're saying is spot on. But there's times where things have been set and we need to let the train kind of take its path. My recommendation is that you get prepared for what the solution is if what you're saying is correct. Like, okay. So I took it and I planned for what the answer would be if it ended up the way that I anticipated that it would. And unfortunately, it did. Not to the degree, but it certainly did. And it translated to an opportunity where we worked together on all their healthcare proposals for all plans, not just the one that I represented, because I was able to give them insights from the consumer side that they weren't seeing. And so it was a painful lesson of reading the room, to go back to one of the terms that you were talking about, how to share and be honest and forthright, but also be willing to accept others in terms of what they're looking for, even if it isn't what you think is best.
Yeah, I have zero doubt about you not being self-aware and learning from any failure like that, right? And it making you better in the future. So yeah, that's a good one.
Thank you.
What's a belief that you swear by?
People are at the center of everything. They really are. If you keep that human element in the middle, you're going to do the right thing. You're going to do what's right for your team. You're going to do what's right for the customer. You're going to do what's right for your family. You're going to do what's right for your colleagues. So just keep people in the center of all.
And last question, how would you finish this sentence? For me, one of the most important ways to human up is to
Celebrate differences.
Mm. We're all different, right?
Yes, we're all different, and there's so much to learn from each of
In good
us.
ways.
And, celebrating those differences are really where we can all just do much better.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, Gary, how can people follow you or keep up with you?
Sure. Well, I'm on LinkedIn from a professional social media perspective. My Blue Shield email address is gary.culp. Yeah, Blue Shield CA, so like as in Blue Shield California.com. And it's all one word. So gary.culp, blueshieldca.com.
And if they want to apply for a job that's under you, they just email you the resume and
Yes. Yeah, just don't blow up our server. No, there's, Blue Shield
yeah,
is always hiring. Go
yeah,
to blueshield.com, blueshieldcalifornia.com, and you'll see like opportunities they're posting and everything, and absolutely welcome, candidates and everything as well.
yeah. Blue Shield's doing some great stuff right now. Gary, thanks so much. I really appreciate you taking some time and to hang out with us. And your insights are so valuable, man. I have no doubt that people that give this a listen are going to be better off and get some great insights. So I really appreciate you, and thanks for being on.
Thank you, Rex. I appreciate you too, and thanks for having me too.
You bet. Okay, thanks everyone. We'll talk next time.